Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker and today's video is a special edition of NBA Trade Machine where it is the trade deadline special. I'm going to do one of these this week and then I'm going to do one later on before the trade deadline of all trades that you guys have sent me over on Twitter. I sent out a tweet asking for just trades in general. Any teams, any players are fair game, and I'm going to pull from those trades in this video as well as the next one to cover as many players as I can before the trade deadline actually starts, and they're all community suggested trades from you guys. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy the NBA, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day. And we begin with Jace, who I would say at this point has probably been in like 6 different Trade Machine episodes this year. He's been crushing it, and I think he does a really good job coming up with trades. And this is kind of an interesting out-of-the-box one that I like. He said that the Suns would receive Zubac, Jerome Robinson, Cavingeli, and Terrence Mann in exchange for Aron Baynes and Dario Saric, and the Clippers, according to him, would also send 2 seconds to Phoenix. Let's talk about why this would make sense. So for the Clippers, they definitely need some more size once they get to the postseason, specifically defensively. Zubac is a good defender as a big, but he didn't fare well in the postseason at all last year. Didn't really even get a chance to play a ton in that Warriors series because they kind of ran him off the floor. Obviously, it's the Warriors. It's going to be tough for any big to stay on the floor, but in general, that's not a great sign for a guy that they're going to need to count on defensively in the postseason. So you're swapping him out for someone in Baynes that's more proven, more of a veteran, and someone that I would personally just trust more in the postseason and has the added benefit of being able to space the floor at the 5 spot as well. And then you have someone in Dario Saric that I think is an interesting addition to this deal because he's someone that's been traded around so much, and I continue to think that he has value as someone that can space the floor, someone that can play make a little bit as well, and he would be a really nice addition for this Clippers team. And they're only giving up Zubac, who, like I said, was good last year, and they'd probably ideally like to keep him, but in terms of their championship aspirations this year, I think Baynes definitely helps them get to that championship level more than Zubac does for this year. And then they're giving up Jerome Robinson, Cavingeli, and Mann, a couple of guys that have been thrown around as young assets that they could potentially trade in deals throughout really this entire season. So they're not giving up a ton in terms of their current rotation and getting 2 guys that I think would definitely really help them. And in exchange, the Suns are getting Zubac, who's, a younger player than Baynes. Obviously, Baynes has been really good for them, but maybe thinking a little bit more in the long term, he'd be a really good backup for Ayton, or maybe you could even try and figure out a way to get both of those guys to play together as they've attempted to do with Baynes. Jerome Robinson, I think, is a talented player and just hasn't been able to get consistent minutes to really build up that confidence. And in Phoenix, I think he would have the opportunity to do that. And then the other 2 players, in my opinion, are essentially just throw-ins. Terrence Mann could potentially be a really good defender down the road, and Cavingeli, I don't really have much to say about him. So those guys are essentially just throw-ins, and then you're getting the 2 seconds as well. This might, I don't expect this to happen tomorrow. Maybe once we get closer to the trade deadline, if the Suns start to slide and they're like, the playoffs probably aren't going to happen for us, maybe this would be a move that they would be more motivated to make. But for the Clippers specifically, I really like this deal. Next up now, Aleem says that the Raptors would receive Danillo Gallinari in exchange for Serge Ibaka and their own first-round pick in 2021. So this is a trade that I would like to see happen. I think Danilo Gallinari has plenty of value around the league, and I think that ideally the Thunder would make a move to trade him because he's an expiring contract and he's a good player. Teams are going to want him. The problem is the Thunder are too good, right? They're in the postseason hunt. They're probably going to make the playoffs if they stay at this current pace, and Gallinari is a pretty big part of that. And so they're in this weird situation where it's like he's on an expiring. It would make sense to trade him. Maybe we'll bring him back in the offseason. We want to be good, but he also has value. There's just so many different things to consider with him. And so this is under the assumption that the Thunder are saying, okay, we like where we're at as a team, but we're okay moving on from Gallinari, getting a pick, still keeping the expiring in Serge Ibaka and someone that can help this team right now in exchange for someone in Gallinari that I probably don't think is going to be in their long-term plan. So that's the mindset here. They're getting back Ibaka, someone that can space, someone that can defend, and they're getting the pick as well. While for the Raptors, I love the addition of Danilo Gallinari. I think, Ibaka has been good for them at times, but they have Gasol, they have Boucher, they have other guys they've been kind of working in as big. Siakam could even play some small ball 5 as well, so I'm not really concerned about them losing front court depth, and there'll probably be a buyout player or 2 that they could be involved in as well to kind of make up for the loss of Ibaka in terms of a backup 5. But having Gallinari just adds to this group of players that they have that can all really make some plays and create on their own, whether it's Siakam, Van Vliet, Lowry, and then adding Danilo Gallinari to that as well, someone that can space, someone that can score, someone that can do some on-ball stuff, whether it be playmaking or scoring. I love his fit in Toronto. It depends on if the Thunder are willing to give up Gallinari for this kind of package, but at the end of the day, this would be a trade I would love to see happen. Next up now, David says that the Bucks would receive Derrick Rose in exchange for Ersan Ilyasova and 2 second-round picks. He said, "I think this trade would help the Bucks with a lot of what you said in your recent video. It even would go hand in hand with the Gallo trade as well. You can mix and match the picks to your liking to get Detroit to agree." And I'm glad you put that in at the end, David, about the picks, because I think potentially you would have to throw in a first-round pick to get the Pistons to agree, given the fact that Derrick Rose has been really good. He's on a fair contract this year and next. I think he's someone that has a good amount of value, and this is essentially just 2 seconds because I don't really think they're all that excited about Ersan Ilyasova. So maybe throw in a first-round pick here, but let's talk about this first for Milwaukee because I think that's where most of the interest lies. If you didn't watch the video that he's referencing in this tweet, essentially I said the Bucks need to kind of replace that Malcolm Brogdon role a little bit more. They need a little bit more creativity and playmaking on the perimeter, and ideally that would involve shipping out Eric Bledsoe, and I would be perfectly fine with replacing him with someone like Derrick Rose just to provide them a little bit more scoring punch instead of always just relying on Giannis creating everything and kicking it out to shooters. Having someone else that can break the defense down would be good, and Rose fits in well here. Whether he would be a good off-ball fit is a question mark, certainly as a shooter, but I think it would be a risk that would be worth taking, especially for this kind of package. But even if they didn't have any other deals and they wanted to throw in a first instead of 2 seconds, would make sense to me. For Detroit, again, I would imagine they would need a first-round pick rather than 2 seconds because Ilyasova doesn't really excite them any, doesn't get them out of any kind of salary because Rose and Ilyasova are essentially on the same contract. So 2 seconds for Derrick Rose at this point, I think, isn't enough value. So if you threw in a first, they'd probably say yes and just try and get some future value for Rose. Second to last now, Laurent sent me a trade in which the Kings would receive Gorgui Dieng and Robert Covington in exchange for Dwayne Dedmon, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Yogi Ferrell. And this, for me, is more of a, hey, this is interesting than the Kings would actually accept this type deal, because in Minnesota, I think Bogdanovic would be a really, really good fit, especially when you're considering replacing him or replacing Covington with him as a little bit more of an offensive-oriented player, someone that can play make, especially on a team that is going more towards this, let's just have all of our wings play make type thing because they got rid of Jeff Teague. I think this would be a really interesting fit. Then you're adding Dwayne Dedmon, who I think is still a very solid 5-man, basically replacing him with Dieng. You're taking on an extra year's salary there, but you're getting out from under the Dieng deal, which is a little bit more in the long run. And then you have Yogi Ferrell, who would help Minnesota in the backcourt as a creator, but not super impactful here. So this is more of a, I would love to see Bogdanovic on the Kings, or excuse me, on the Timberwolves in replacement of Covington type thing, because once you get over to the other side, I don't really know that the Kings would be all that excited about this. Covington is a good defensive and three-point shooting type player. Maybe they need more of that. He's locked up longer term than Bogdanovic, so that part makes sense. And then Dieng's deal is 1 year shorter than Dedmon's, but you can buy him out in the 3rd year for not that much cost on your salary cap anyway. So essentially this is about, would we rather have Covington locked up long term as a bit more of a defensive player, or Bogdanovic, someone that we would have to pay this off season that's a little bit more of an offensive player? Essentially that's what this comes down to. But I think it was really interesting and kind of an outside the box deal. All right, last up now is a really simple one, and it's the Sixers receiving Davis Bertans in exchange for Mike Scott, Zaire Smith, and a first-round pick from Oklahoma City from Philly. And for me, first of all, this is too much value. I love Davis Bertans, and if Philly thinks this is just the only deal that they can make to try and push themselves to championship status and they want to get great shooters, and Bertans would be fantastic for them, I get that. But Smith and a first for me personally is a little bit too rich. Maybe if we're just looking at Mike Scott and a first, that would make sense. But as much as I love Bertans, I'm not giving up 2 assets like Smith and a first in exchange for him. Smith, I still think could be something down the road. He's dealing with a really difficult situation to begin his career with the allergic reaction that he had, and he's been out of the league, and he's been, really trying to recover from that. And then the first round pick from Oklahoma City as well, that's probably only going to be the 20th pick or something, but still has value. For me, I would say Mike's got to make the salaries work, and you can take Smith or you can take the first, and we'll try and, jumble together some other salaries to make it work. And for Washington, I would encourage them to obviously explore Bertans trades, because he's someone that is really good right now. I don't think his value is ever going to be higher than it is. It's not like this team is making the postseason. Get some value to add to what could be a rebuild here coming pretty soon, whether they trade Bradley Beal or not. They need future value. Bertans can provide it to them via trade. I would definitely hope that they would explore a deal like this. And for the Sixers, again, if they brought down the price a little bit, I like the addition of Bertans' shooting on a team that desperately needs some. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Like I said in the beginning of the video, go and add your trades to that tweet. Go and follow me over on Twitter at SportingLogical and add your tweet to whatever, or to that thread, so that I can look and see what trades you guys have for me, because I'm going to put out one more video and one more episode of this like trade deadline edition as we get closer to the deadline. This is the first one, and it'll be a part 2 as well. So if you want to be featured, go and add those over there. That's the easiest way for me to find it and look at it to try and put it in the video. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.